Good evening. My name is Tracy Craig. I'll be moderating tonight's meeting. This is Alameda County Environmental Health Department's community meeting to discuss the proposed cleanup plan, or as we call it, the draft correction action plan for 3890 to 3898 Depot Road in Hayward. Next slide, John. Okay, we do have Spanish language interpretation, so I'm going to give our Spanish interpreters a minute to explain what I just said, and then if anybody's listening in Spanish, we'll have real-time interpretation.
Para aquellos que están escuchando la interpretación al español, para acceder a la misma tienen que ir a la parte inferior de la pantalla, donde van a encontrar el botón que dice interpretación. Ahí seleccionar el idioma que deseen escuchar, en este caso español, y si lo desean pueden silenciar el audio original. En caso de conectarse mediante un teléfono, tienen que dirigirse a los 3 botoncitos que se encuentran en la parte superior derecha de la pantalla. Ahí elegir interpretación de idiomas y seleccionar el idioma de su elección.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Okay, this is our agenda for tonight. We'll go through who's on our webinar. We'll go through a site overview, talk about the proposed cleanup plan, the plans that will be in place to make sure that the community is protected during all work. We'll talk about the schedule, and then we'll open it up for the most important part, which is questions and answers and input from the community before we make a decision on the site. As I said, we're here tonight to discuss the draft cleanup plan for Depot Road in Hayward. We are in the middle of the public comment period on that, and that runs from August 23rd to September 23rd, as you can see by the dates at the bottom of the agenda. This is a Zoom webinar. That means that any attendees that we have do not have audio or visual feed. But if you'd like to ask a question at any time, you can raise your virtual hand, and John Permani will unmute you. You can also, if you're on a cell phone, push *9 to unmute yourself, and then *6 to speak. I'd like to quickly introduce who we have here participating tonight. So again, this is Alameda County Environmental Health Department's community meeting. And with us tonight is Noel Liner, and he's the project manager for the county overseeing and approving all work. Also, we don't have any representatives tonight, but the city of Hayward does have a role in this project. They do issue grading permits, approve traffic control plans. And finally, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District also has a role during construction, and that is if there are dust complaints, they respond to those. And then the folks that are actually cleaning up the site, we have representation from them as well. The organization that owns or is developing the property is FR Depot Road LLC. And with us tonight is Jason Steinhauer. He's the owner's representative. We also have people from RU Associates, and RU is an environmental engineering firm that FR Depot is using. We have Richard Maxwell, who's a principal geologist, Michael Friedman, and Dylan Bailey. And then finally, I'm here, Tracy Craig from Craig Communications, and with me is John Permani, and John is running all of the Zoom for this and will be unmuting folks and doing all of the magic in the background. Okay. All right, and then quickly, I'd just like to orient you. Here's the site location map. You can see Depot Road, and this again is in Hayward. And now I'd like to turn it over to Noel, who'll go through a short presentation, and then we'll turn it back to me before the question and answer portion.
Thank you, Tracy. So for our audience out here, this slide indicates the location of the site, green and yellow. There are 2 parcels here. Both have a similar history. They were at one point in time agricultural in nature, and then starting in the late 1960s to approximately 2014, primarily as an automotive salvage yard. Also a former trucking company. So both of those site histories are explained in great detail in the case record on GeoTracker. Following 2014, after the automotive salvage repair yards had left the sites, the sites became concrete recycling, pallet, and cardboard recycling. They're currently vacant. So, prior to today, cleanup has been conducted on the site, consisting of removal. This was at the time the automotive salvage and repair yard had left of all of this waste oil. Is 15,276 gallons of waste oil, nearly 21,000 tires, millions of pounds of scrap iron, over 1,000 lead acid batteries, and what the case record just documents as quote unquote solid waste was removed from this site. So prior to that, it had been a pretty dirty set of operations, but a lot of cleanup had happened. There is still some residual impacts, limited in nature, and that those will be remediated, and that is what this cleanup is about. So if we can go to the next slide. Thanks. So there have been multiple investigations beginning from 2001 to today. And essentially, the most recent investigations are the ones that data we are relying on the most. And those contaminants of concern that have been delineated in soil contain lead, lower levels of petroleum hydrocarbons, some arsenic, and a very limited area of low levels of PCBs. Groundwater historically has had some metals and low levels of petroleum hydrocarbons and MTBE. That seems to be ubiquitous given the nature of the area and the surrounding site uses that also have similar histories. And there has been some chlorinated volatile compounds detected in soil vapor, some methane, some petroleum hydrocarbons at varying but fairly benign levels in general, and those will be addressed in a separate risk from that will be addressed in a separate vapor intrusion site conceptual model. So this particular site cleanup that is being proposed is for soil, and it will remove the lead, the petroleum hydrocarbons, arsenic, and the limited area of PCBs. So we go to the next slide. This slide is just simply showing the locations of samples that have been collected over the course of site investigations. Colored ones are the recent site investigations for the last couple of years. They are in this pattern and these colors because they represent step-out samples where we have delineated or have some multiple iterations of investigations that were required to get to the edge of what we think are the extents of the impacts. So if you can go to the next slide. You can see that these approximate excavation areas overlap with some of those locations on the former slide. That shows where the boundaries are going to be. Vertically, impacts have been delineated in shallow soil to about 3 feet. They've been delineated below that, but essentially lead and other contaminants are within the upper 3 feet here. So it is very shallow excavations that will be performed around the site. And in the lower right-hand corner of the slide, this unusually shaped excavation here on the bottom, there will be some step-out samples collected there for purposes of doing a little bit of additional delineation for lead. We can move to the next slide. Currently, we're projecting approximately 2,860 cubic yards of soil will be removed from the site. There will be one portion of excavation up to 5 feet, but generally 2 to 3. Soil samples will be collected to confirm that the contamination has been removed. If it hasn't, then the excavation will extend and additional soil samples will be collected. That soil will be temporarily stored on the property, and then it will be loaded into trucks for transportation to an off-site disposal facility. Go to the next slide, thanks. During this excavation work, perimeter air monitoring will be required. That will consist of up and downwind dust monitoring stations and portable air monitor, as well as monitoring equipment for wind direction and speed. And those dust monitoring equipment stations will house dust monitors that take continuous measurements, and those continuous measurements will be averaged throughout the day to verify that action levels will be in conformance with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District regulations. That's 50 micrograms per cubic meter over a 24-hour period. And if any of those action levels are exceeded or reached, then the work will stop and additional controls will be put in place. So these are some of the additional controls that we're looking at. You see photographs of them basically illustrating what's on the bullet points here on the left-hand side of the slide. Misting of water to keep dust from becoming airborne. Stockpiles that are not being worked by the excavation equipment be covered and weighted down. This particular slide shows tires, but using something a little bit more robust than that, sandbags likely. Any equipment that rolls off the site, soil will be taken off the tires. You see this truck driving over what's called a rumble plate that removes soil from tires before it goes onto the city streets, so that soil does not become ingrained into the asphalt and lifted by the wind later as it dries out. And then at the end of each day, the site will be secured with a fence. Go to the next slide, thanks. Current projections are about 1 month to remove the soil. That would be about 10 to 20 trucks per day. There is the next slide will show the traffic plan for the route of the trucks. It is primarily through commercial spaces and industrial spaces. So any travel will be minimized through residential streets to the extent practicable, and you don't expect there will be any really. Trucks could be staged on the site or perhaps outside along Depot Road, again in the commercial area. So impacts to residential receptors are not expected. Trucks are not going to be parking on residential streets. Idle time will be dictated by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District regulations of less than 5 minutes. And again, as they leave the site, loose soil will be removed from the trucks. They will all be maintained regularly at an off-site location to ensure they're in proper working order. This is a truck route map. Site indicated by a star on the upper left-hand side. Goes through industrial and commercial areas. Short little bit of boundary between those areas and residential, but primarily again to commercial locations. So straight shot to the highway and then off to the disposal facility.
Okay. So it's important for people to know what they can expect during this work. This work will last about a month. There'll be a crew of about 24 individuals on site. This is heavy construction work, so you'll see big yellow equipment. And the working hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There will be site signage, and on that site we'll have my name and my number. It's also right here, Tracy Craig, 510-334-4866. That's my cell phone. If neighbors or people walking by have any questions or concern, they're welcome to call me or text me at any time, and I'll work with the on-site crew to address those. And this is our schedule. So right now, again, we're in the middle of the public comment period, which will end September 23rd. Alameda County will issue what's called a response to comments document that will respond to any comments that we received, and will show how they were considered in making a final decision about the corrective action plan for the site. We anticipate that will be done in the September-October timeframe. A work notice will go out to the community 5 days before the work starts so that people can prepare themselves for that month of work. Actual soil excavation will last about a month, and that will be conducted in late October or November. Communications are ongoing And as with any schedule, this one is subject to change based on weather or permitting conditions. And finally, the most important part, how to provide public comments. People can provide public comments at tonight's meeting. They can also email them to me at tracy@craig-communications.com. Call me or text me with questions. And the documents themselves, if you're so inclined to look at them, are available on the Water Board's website. And that's the first piece of information. John, can you just highlight that? Where it says GeoTracker Water Board. So all you have to do is go there, put in the search engine 3890-3898 Depot Road, Hayward, and all of the documents will pop up. That does conclude our presentation for tonight. We do not have any attendees, so we are going to end early, but we do encourage anybody that's interested or wants to know more about this site. This video will be uploaded to YouTube, and the link to that can be found on the GeoTracker website. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight, and I wish you a nice evening. Good night.